Hi everyone, I am Farlace with the Farlace LaShone Financial Group, and welcome to the presentation of what they don't tell you about credit. This is something that I put together over the years and just observed and researched for myself, and I wanted to share with you some things that they don't actually tell you about credit. Disclaimer, with investing, there is risk, a potential for wins and losses of income. A diversified portfolio is the best strategy to minimize risk. Only invest what you can afford to risk. I cannot and will not make recommendations as to what stocks to invest in. I will only provide you with the tools and knowledge so that you can make educated and informed financial decisions when you choose to invest and build your financial future. I do not make claims to guarantee success nor wealth. Results will vary from individual to individual. I'm about to share an unpopular opinion about my views on credit, and that is use credit till you no longer have to use credit. I know you're scratching your head like, what? What is she talking about? Hear me out. Credit, my unpopular opinion. I know my opinion of credit goes against everything you were taught, but hear me out. Use credit until you no longer have to use credit. Some of you were even taught in your religious studies, be the lender and not the borrower. I absolutely agree with this analogy. Yet the only way to maintain a stellar credit rating is if you owe someone. With this logic, how will you ever be the lender if you're always borrowing money? At some point, you should get to the point where you don't have to rely on your personal credit. You should get to a point where you have enough wealth to pay for what you want in cash. We'll talk more about that later. You shouldn't always have to borrow money. The only way to maintain a stellar credit rating, which means you have to owe somebody something all the time. That's how you maintain an open line of credit. And the only way to maintain an open line of credit is by owing someone. So, credit scores, unpopular opinion. Why don't they assign a higher rating for those that pay off all of their debt and don't owe anyone for years? I went 7 to 8 years without owing a soul. Paid for everything I wanted in cash, new car, fully furnished with the new furniture, a villa fully furnished with new furniture, businesses, etc. So if a person who owes someone and pays them off on time can get an 800 credit score, why can't the ones that pay cash and don't owe anyone anything get a 1600? Answer that question for me, someone. That is, if the system was really set up to benefit and progress you. I, for years, didn't owe anybody anything. But because I didn't owe anybody anything, they wanted to assign me a lower credit rating, even though I wasn't behind on anything, even though there wasn't a single soul that could say that I owed them money. But they give they give a higher credit rating to those people who borrow money and have to pay it back. Interesting, huh? Faulty representatives of the credit system. This is another area that is flawed. The system isn't run fairly by those that represent it. Case in point, I wrecked my car years ago and went to a Ford dealership to purchase a new Lincoln Town car. Don't judge me, they were in style once. But anywho, the car salesman, an older white guy, said, "Your credit isn't good enough." I found that odd, as I had purchased 4 vehicles prior to without any issues. So I didn't argue. I came back with the holy grail of good credit, my mother. And he said she too had bad credit. Now I knew he was bullshitting after this. Like, my mother has never in her entire life had bad credit. So I went to the dealer down the street, purchased a new GMC Envoy, got the new truck instantly with no down payment. Got the truck instantly, no down payment. The snake exposed. I immediately took the truck to the guy at the Ford dealership to flaunt it and taunt him, as I knew he was lying. He comes outside, looks at my truck, drops his head, and heads back in. Before I can get into my truck to drive off, a black salesman that works there came running out, and he said, "I'm so glad you brought your new truck by to rub it in his face. He lied to you and your mom. Both of your credit was good. He was holding that car for a young white girl who had bad credit and didn't even make a down payment. Imagine that. So this guy, who's a representative of the credit system because he works for an organization that utilizes the system in order to supposedly help people get a vehicle. He was only helping certain people get vehicles. Because when he said that I had bad credit, that of course, raised some flags for me. When he said my mother had bad credit, that raised all types of red flags. I wasn't going to sit there and argue with him back and forth because he kept telling us, no, your credit's just not good. It's just not good enough. These things happen, you just come back, later once you build your credit and we'll be glad to work with you. The bullshit they shoot you. And I went right down the street, got a truck that was actually twice the price of the car that he was selling me. Because the car that I was purchasing, it wasn't a brand new car. I think the car at the time was maybe 2 or 3 years old. But anyway, the truck that I purchased was double the price of the car that he was bullshitting me with. So imagine that. Bamboozled no more. Rich people aren't sitting around talking about getting a 750 credit score. Most of the millionaires that I've dealt with don't even have good credit. I know one guy in particular, he just purchased a new yacht. He had like a 500, I think a 515 credit score, but he could purchase a $3 million yacht. Imagine that. But they have excellent business credit, which you don't need a good personal credit score to obtain. However, the haves make you, the have-nots, think you need it to win this frat race. That's where the Pinocchio news comes in. What I'm advising you is to utilize the system of credit until you no longer need it. They are using their business credit to purchase million-dollar real estate properties, making lucrative investments, and don't use a penny of their money or their personal credit score. You can be denied for a $1,500 loan using your personal credit, but be approved for a $350,000 loan in the same week using your business credit. Crazy, huh? Absolutely crazy. So the new approach to credit I want you to take. My advice is, number one, become a lender and not a borrower, which means you should not be always in debt to someone for the rest of your life. You should not, for the next 40, 50 years that you're on this earth, you should not owe somebody all of those years. You should get to a point where you have generated enough wealth to pay for that new car in cash, to pay for your new house in cash, to furnish every single room in your house in cash. If you cannot do that, you haven't grinded enough. You have not made enough money. Use credit until you no longer have to use credit. Number three, business credit over personal credit. Teach your kids this. If you have to worry about a credit score, you haven't made enough money, my friend. Keep grinding. Thank you so much for attending this financial presentation from the Farlace LaShone Financial Group. I am Farlace. As always, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.